Let's discuss Gauss's law, which is the first Maxwell's law of electromagnetism. We know that for a point charge Q, the electric field is estimated like this. Direction of the electric field is along this r hat direction. And if we want to calculate the integral of this electric field for this surface, then if I take a spherical surface, then in spherical coordinates, this surface area looks like r square sine theta d phi, and we know that theta has the limit between 0 to pi, whereas phi must be within 0 to 2 pi. This r square and this r square in the numerator, this then cancel out. And if I find the integration of sine theta d theta, it would be minus cos theta. And minus cos theta within the limit of 0 to pi gives me 2. And d phi, integration of d phi gives me twice pi. So it's basically this angular part, this sine theta d phi, this angular part gives me 4 pi. The 4 pi gets cancelled out. R square is already cancelled out. So what is left with Q by epsilon 0? This is in free space. Now, if we want to have a closed surface and we want to find out the integration of the electric field for that surface, this necessarily, this can be any surface. It could be a cylindrical surface. It could be any general surface. It need not be a spherical surface. Here I have taken the spherical surface. That's okay. But it could be a cylindrical or any other kind of surface. And what we know from this Gauss's law is integration of the electric field for any closed surface is equal to Q by epsilon 0. Q is the charge enclosed by the surface, and this is the law which tells me that this entire integration is basically the amount of charge enclosed by the surface. If I have this surface and it encloses a charge Q, then this integration gives me the result. This kind of surface which encloses the charge and which is used to calculate the charge enclosed is known as Gaussian surface. Now, if we have this kind of surface and I want to find out the same integration for this red colored surface, I'll get a 0 because this red surface has no charge enclosed. Now, this Gauss's law is applied for free space, but what if we have a material or a medium instead of the free space? Let's consider the situation when we have a capacitor. These are the two plates of the capacitor. This is the left plate, say. This is the right plate, say. We have applied a potential difference between the left plate and the right plate. And the electric field, suppose, is directed from left to right. Here we have air. Now, when we have a medium instead of a vacuum, we need to consider D, which is called the electric flux density, instead of E. Suppose we have replaced this air with some material like wool or glass or maybe some metal. Then what will be the electric field inside? Is it the same as before? Now, suppose we have a material, this is just for illustration purpose. If we have a material, we have electric field E here, we have electric field E here. But what is the electric field inside the material? We know that all kind of substances, substances contain atoms. Suppose it is a metal. It contains lots of free electrons. If it is glass, that is insulator, it has electrons, but those electrons are bound to the nucleus. Those are not free to move. So when we are placing some material here instead of vacuum, vacuum, then this electric field E has been modified due to the presence of material because of the electrons inside the material. And as we have a charge configuration at the microscopic level, this electric field has been modified, and in order to account for the modified electric field, we need to consider some phenomenological property which is called macroscopic material property, and this is characteristic of that particular material. We need to know that material property in order to investigate the electric field inside the material. And all these material properties are phenomenological, because we observe a phenomena and then decide what is the material is, what is the property of the material. And as those properties are characteristics of a particular material, so from observing some phenomena, we can estimate those material properties, and hence we can estimate the electric field inside. Suppose we have a charge here, a point charge here, we have a free space. We can easily find out the force in vacuum, which is called F vacuum. But when we are having a field instead of the vacuum, then we need to find out the force F material. Suppose we have observed this F material, then we find the ratio, and this is termed as epsilon R. This epsilon R is called the characteristic of the material, and this is called material property. If we observe this epsilon R, we are done. We do not need to bother about what is going inside microscopically. What is going inside the material at the microscopic level. Now, the electric field which is generated is not by all the charges inside the material. It is generated by actually the free charges inside the material. So what happens is the free charges inside the material gives rise to flux density, and this flux density in turn gives rise to the electric field. And the linkage between this flux density and the electric field, this breach is actually, this gap is actually bridged between this D and E through epsilon R. And if we can generate the electric field, we can also know the force due to the charge. So previously we have a point charges, or we have one point charge in the vacuum. We can easily estimate the electric field due to it, and if we have electric field E, then we can easily estimate force F equal to Q into E in the free space. But in case of materials, these free charges generate electric flux density. Electric flux density can be used to determine the electric field, and this relationship is basically phenomenological, and this D is actually independent of the material. We can have different epsilon R for different materials. And now the relation between these free charges, how the free charges can estimate the electric flux density, this is given by Gauss's law, and how the the flux density gives us the electric field. This relationship is phenomenological, and this relationship is very much dependent on material properties. And from the electric field, we can easily estimate the force, and this is by Lorentz force equation. So in a nutshell, free charges gives rise to flux density. Flux density gives rise to the electric field, and electric field gives rise to the force. And in free space, this electric flux density is related to the electric field through this relation, this epsilon 0. This is for vacuum. And from the law we have just learned, the Gaussian law, due to the charge Q, can be now written like this. Here Q is actually Q enclosed by this closed surface, and Q enclosed can be written like this. And this is the rho v is the volume charge density. So we have a law which is known as the Gaussian law, or the first law of Maxwell's equation. Actually, we can't number it, but this is, I'm telling the first law because of our convenience, because again, I mean, in later sections when we give the reference of any of the 4 laws of Maxwell's equation, when I say first law of Maxwell's equation, I am referring to, I mean, it may be understood that I am referring to this Gaussian law. So this is the integral form of Gaussian law, because in the left hand side of the equation I have an integration, right hand side we also have an integration, and this is in compact form can be written like this integration over the closed surface, integration of this electric flux density, and the integration is taken over this ds surface, and this is equal to Q enclosed equal to this volume charge integration. Let's see the usage of Gaussian law for a line charge distribution. Line charge distribution is something which we have already seen in video number 9. The title of the video was Transformation of Coordinates, and there we exploited the symmetry in case of line charge distribution. Suppose this is my line charge and this is distributed, infinite line charge, and this is distributed along z-axis, and if we just move around this pen, that is, if phi differs, if we move along variation of along the direction of variation of phi, I will find the same charge distribution. It is an infinite charge distribution. Also, if we move along the z-axis upwards or downwards, I can find the same charge distribution. So this is also symmetric symmetric in case of z-axis. So if we have line charge density or linear charge density, which is rho L equal rho L coulomb per meter, first we need to look for the closed Gaussian surface, and then we will find the integration. We will apply the Gaussian law. Suppose this is my closed surface, which is in the form of a cylinder. This cylinder has a constant radius r, and suppose the distance between the top surface and the bottom surface is h. This cylinder has 3 surfaces: top, bottom, and the curved surface. Now, as this is symmetric along z and phi, so we are interested only on the dsr, that is the radial component, and dsr is equal to r d phi dz. We cannot have ds phi or dsz, as I have discussed about the symmetry. The symmetry is already discussed in video number 9. We can go there and have a look. So this is my surface, and the left hand side of the Gaussian law looks like this. This is d and this is ds surface, I mean dsr over here. Now this d has the r, phi and z component, which can be written like this, and if we write the expression of d over here, r dot phi, r dot z, they cancel out, and we can have only this radial component. So for the curved surface, the left hand side of the Gaussian law looks like this. This is the Gaussian law. I have just written it again here for the convenience. Now, for a constant value of r, this dr and r is of course constant. D phi can vary from 0 to 2 pi, where dz can vary from a to b. A is this point and b is this point. So this length from A to B is h. So this is basically an integration. This integration runs for h actually, the length of the cylinder. So left hand side of the Gauss's law looks like this, because for a constant r we have taken outside dr r. D phi gives me 2 pi and dz gives me h, that is the difference between point A and point B, which is nothing but h, as we can see from the cylinder itself. And what is the right hand side of the integration, right hand side of the equation of the Gauss's law? We have to find out the charge enclosed, and now charge is entirely lying on the z-axis. So this is my q enclosed. Now again this integral of dz with the limits a to b gives me h. Equating left hand side and right hand side, I can easily calculate dr, that is the radial component of the flux, which turns out to be this. And if we assume that there is a free space, then the electric field can be written from this relation, and this electric field turns out to be this much volts per meter, and this is along radial direction. Let us apply Gauss's law for infinite sheet of a charge. Suppose we have a sheet of charge. This is distributed up to infinity and it is lying on this plane. This is xy plane. Now this infinite sheet of charge can be thought of as an infinite number of lying charges. We can think that this sheet is basically made of infinite number of line charges, and all the line charges are distributed up to infinity. Now I am taking a Gaussian surface, a closed surface, inside this sheet of charge, and upper limit, that is, let's say that the top surface of this this cube is along z equal to h, and the bottom surface lies along z equal to minus h. Just for the illustration, let me take this book as my infinite sheet of charge, and this charger represents the cube I have considered. The top surface is at z equal to plus h, the bottom surface of the charger is at z equal to minus h, and this infinite sheet of charge lies here, that is at z equal to h by 2, that is the midway of this cube. So half of the cube is lying above and half of the cube is lying below the infinite sheet of charge. And as on this infinite sheet of charge there are infinite number of line charges, and due to all those line charges, how will be the electric field? Suppose I consider this random point on the middle of this charger, or maybe here or maybe here, at any point this is true, this argument will be true. For example, at this point, if the electric field is along this direction and there is also an electric field along this direction, because there are infinite number of line charges, so the resultant electric field will be along positive z-axis, that is upward, that is outward to the plane of this book. So similarly, and this is the pictorial representation, this is along z-axis and this is the direction of the resultant electric field. Now obviously this is the direction of flux density also, because electric field is along z direction. As the electric field is along z direction, D does not have any component along y or x axis. If we want to find out the left hand side of the Gauss's law, that is a closed surface integral of D over the surface ds. Now what is the surface ds here? ds is nothing but dx into dy. Integration should be done on dx into dy because this is just a cube. And if this surface is considered to be delta x and this surface is considered to be delta y, then the left hand side of the Gauss's law looks like dz delta x delta y. But y is the 2 factor here. Like the top surface, we also have an electric field downward, the resultant electric field downward. Similarly, we have d also downward to the surface, and those two will add up, and this is the reason for this factor 2. Now we have a charge density, surface charge density rho s coulomb per meter square, for example. Then what will be the total charge on the surface? The surface area along this and this the direction is delta x into delta y. So total surface charge will be rho s into delta x into delta y. So applying the Gauss's law, we have found dz equal to rho s by 2. Similarly, Ez, that is the z component of the electric field, is also rho s by twice epsilon 0. If we assume that this is done in free space. And what is interesting here, this is independent of x or y or z. It is constant. So if we have an infinite sheet of charge, then the electric field intensity at just 1 centimeter away from this sheet is exactly the same, theoretically is the same if I choose a point 1 kilometer or maybe 10 kilometer from the sheet of charge. This is a very interesting result.